Greg, thanks so much for being back on the show. We really appreciate it.
Sure, Nash. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here.
So I just laid out some of the results of Brian Sanderoff's most recent poll of the GOP primary race, and I'd like to get into with you some of the why. What's behind those numbers? What stood out to you in terms of where certain candidates are resonating with people, and what's behind that?
Well, I wasn't surprised by Greg Hull being at 30%, but I thought Doug Turner and Duke Rodriguez would be somewhere around 15% each. So I was surprised when Doug wound up being at 21% and Duke was only at 9%.
And what about some of the demographics? Hull is resonating more with both men and women, but it gets a lot closer between him and Turner when you look just at women and who they're supporting. What do you think's behind that?
I don't know. It could be, and I've jokingly said that, Hull's got the goatee and maybe that appeals to men or something like that. And maybe, Doug is a little more urbane, for lack of a better word. So, but I really don't know. But I think it's important because whoever the nominee is on the GOP side, they're going to have support from women voters.
Sanderoff's poll also broke down kind of the regional divide, and we saw Turner actually ahead in both eastern New Mexico, southwestern New Mexico, that includes Las Cruces, and then Hull far ahead in the Albuquerque Metro and North Central. Can you break that down a little bit?
Well, so Hull makes sense because he was mayor of Rio Rancho, so Sandoval County. He's been in the Albuquerque media. Again, the surprise for me was Doug Turner doing so well in Little Texas and down by Las Cruces.
Yeah, what's going on there, do you think?
Yeah, it's got to be the oil and gas industry, but for a kid from Albuquerque like Doug is, he grew up in the Old Town area, to have a base already on the east side and down south is pretty remarkable.
And do you think, what will that mean as the campaign continues over these next few weeks, that he's got that base?
Right. No, it's simple. I mean, he can focus on Albuquerque now in the final weeks of the campaign, which is where I think it's going to be won or lost.
Okay. Well, Election Day is a little bit more than 3 weeks away. Let's talk about momentum. Let's talk about money. How do you see this thing playing out as we enter this home stretch? Who's surging? Who's tanking? Who's got the money to keep it going?
Well, talking about money, I mean, one of the people who's obviously tanking at 9% is Duke Rodriguez. I think that campaign made a huge mistake because Duke said he had $2 million to spend on the campaign. He should put that money in the bank immediately to show he was serious. He didn't do it for some reason.
What did he do instead?
Well, I think he put like $500,000 in. And he started talking about tranches, like he would release the money as he needed to release the money. That sent a mixed message, I think. Either you're serious about what you say. If he said, I'm going to spend $2 million, then you put the $2 million in the bank. That was a huge mistake.
You think that could have scared some of his competition off?
I think if he had, that's a great point. If he had put the $2 million in the bank, I'm not sure Turner would have run. I'm not sure the oil and gas industry would have gotten involved. I think he would have scared him off, but it turned out to be a bluff. And between Turner and the oil and gas industry, they called the bluff.
Well, in terms of Turner and Hull, what do you make of their war chests and their momentum going into these final weeks?
I'm not sure that Greg Hull has a war chest, and that's his main problem. He doesn't have the money to get his message out.
Okay, and so what does that mean?
That means that Doug Turner does have money, and he's got the oil and gas industry. I believe they have a pack. So I don't think that Doug has to attack Duke or attack Hull. I think all Doug has to do is promote Doug, and he's got the resources to do it.
Okay. Well, I do want to go a little bit deeper into Duke Rodriguez. You mentioned you feel like he's tanking. He fell from second in the Emerson poll in the double digits to a distant third in Sanderoff's poll. What's not resonating about his campaign?
Well, number one, I think people realize that he did live in Arizona. He voted for governor in 2024 in Arizona, and his whole campaign was pretty much waged in the courtroom. It was, the fight to get on the ballot, and then going after Michelle Lujan Grisham over daycare. It's been a courtroom campaign.
But I mean, at the same time, those court cases have kept him in the media for free without having to pay for ads. Why wouldn't that help his case to just have his name out there so much?
So I know that Republicans are not fans of Michelle Lujan Grisham, but I don't know that it would have sued her over daycare. There are a lot of Republicans, going back to Turner and the female vote, who are pro daycare.
I mean, it's the universal child care program.
Right, exactly. Yeah. If I were Duke, if I were helping on that campaign, I would have advised him to sue Michelle Lujan Grisham over guns and gun control, because that's much more of a resonating issue with the GOP primary voters.
So it sounds like, in your opinion, he's not going to win. You're counting him out. If that's the case, what does his presence on the ballot do to Turner and Hull? Where do those voters go?
Here's a real good question. I'm not sure who your typical Duke Rodriguez voter is. I think it's more important for the nominee, who I think is going to be Doug Turner, to reach out to Greg Hull for those voters.
Okay. And you think it's going to be Turner, despite him lagging in this most recent poll, because you say he's got the momentum and he's also got that base in rural New Mexico and can focus now on Albuquerque? Is that why you say that?
And he's got the war chest.
Okay.
And so I don't think at this point, if Duke were to spend the $2 million, I think it's too late in the game for him to really make a dent and to capture the nomination. I just don't see it.
Okay. Well, there's a huge pool of voters to tap for all three of these candidates, because the Sandroff poll found 40% are undecided on who to vote for in this race. That's massive.
That is. It's huge. And but it kind of speaks to the primary voter. I mean, none of these candidates have really set the world on fire. Doug does have momentum, but you don't see like the huge. The person I'm thinking about is Mamdani in New York, where you had the grassroots on the progressive side just get really excited about his candidacy. I don't really sense that with the grassroots in the GOP right now. Having said, I think Doug's going to win, but I just don't see that energy.
Okay, Sandroff had said that it may be chalked up to the fact that none of these three have run for statewide office, have held statewide office before. That's not true. Turner has run for statewide office, but none of them have held office. Right. What do you make of that argument? And do you think it's more of what you're saying about a grassroots like excitement among the base?
Right. Well, I think there's a lot to that argument. And none of the candidates, with the exception of Duke, none of the candidates have really been on the media or in the TV until recently. I think Turner just came up about 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it hasn't been as high profile as you might have liked if you're running for governor or to be the GOP nominee.
Do you think, what's the Trump factor? Would somebody aligning themselves closely with the president get folks excited? We saw that in some of the primary races where Trump's supported candidate won in some of these most recent primary candidates over some incumbents. Could that start a fire?
I don't know. We had the primaries in Indiana where 5 or 6 state senators that were viewed as being opposed to Trump were voted out. New Mexico is not Indiana, so there is a MAGA factor, but I don't think a candidate on the GOP side who wants to be serious about the general election is going to just embrace themselves or, wrap themselves up in MAGA red.
Yeah, who do you see as the MAGA candidate in this race, if anyone?
Well, Doug had his fundraiser out at Mar-a-Lago, so I think that's kind of a message, but he's sending the message that, I'm at Mar-a-Lago and that's Trump's place, but on the other hand, he's not embracing himself with Trump.
Yeah, I asked him if he felt like the invitation had characterized him as the America First candidate. Right. I asked him if he felt that was accurate, and he was a little sheepish about aligning himself with the president or all of his policies.
Well, if he's going to be viable in the general, and I think he will be, he's going to have to really thread the needle on that one.
And doesn't he have to get through the primary first?
He does, but to the extent, getting back to your original question, to the extent that there is a MAGA candidate in the GOP primary, it's Doug Turner.
But are you saying that doesn't help him in New Mexico?
I think it does help him. especially with some of the voters that might normally go to Greg Hull. And again, that's the biggest block of votes out there, Greg Hull at 30%. If at some point someone who's supporting Hull believes that Doug is a better fit, or Doug is actually the one who went out to Mar-a-Lago, a lot of those votes might go over to Doug.
Right, but then come the general, that might actually hurt him.
I think it was Richard Nixon who said during the primary, you run as far to the right as you can, and then when you get to the general, you head to the middle. So a lot of candidates do that. I think just having the fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, it's not going to hurt Doug, I don't think, in the general. I mean, it's going to be brought up.
Oh, I'm sure it will be.
I'm sure it will be too.
And maybe we'll have you back on to talk about it at that point.
I'd love to.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Nash.